Today, we're busting myths, and the myth freelancing is lonely. Not with the collective behind you, it isn't. We're switching things up and interviewing 3 unicorns today who have worked together on grant research and writing projects. Loretta, our hiring manager, went from $14 an hour jobs to 10K months as a grant writing consultant. You can check out her story here. When she was needing help and support on those projects, she opened up opportunities for other unicorns to join her. Let's hear more about how that collaboration went. Welcome, Loretta, Rachel, and Pat. I am thrilled to have a team conversation today. Thank you so much for coming.
Glad to be here.
Loretta, why you needed to hire and what you were specifically looking for when you decided to hire Pat and Rachel onto your team.
Generally, unicorns talk about getting paid for the work that you do, but I started out as a volunteer to get chops to be able to walk into an interview and say, hey, I have experience with DOE. I have experience with sustainable grants. I have experience with USDA. I actually needed help with some research, and I posted on Circle to say that I needed a volunteer to come in and get certified and learn how to do grant research with me. In return for their volunteering, they get a review on LinkedIn. They get hands-on coaching experience from me to grow their business and their brand. And Pat did such a wonderful job with Concrete Rose and the research that she did for me that I did it again with a client called Nanotech. I actually brought on 4 unicorns. 3 lasted through it, and I've gotten at least 5 unicorns certified now on actual grant clients that I have.
From each of your perspectives, why did you want to work with another unicorn? And Rachel, we'll start with you.
I knew that I wanted to work with another unicorn or someone from the collective because I feel like the Learn Grant Writing program trains you in such a way that it's not just experience in writing grants. It's also so much of the business side of what is needed and like the client relations. So I felt like somebody that went through the process already and is involved in the collective understands that it's not just about turning out narratives. It's also so much more about building a business and freelance. And all of that is something that I kind of struggled with in the beginning. Loretta did post about joining on for that nanotech funding strategy. And I really felt like I needed just that little extra help in dealing with a client right in the beginning and just kind of having my hand held doing the first funding strategy.
Did you get to see inside of her business then a little bit too?
Yes. Loretta is so unique. She's built this incredible business and she does not hold back on how she did it. When I came on to do the funding strategy, she also included so much more with training on how to handle clients, invoicing. She even gave us tips about like how to hire our own subcontractors if we get to that point. I have a accountability group that Learn Grant Writing put together when I first joined in, and Loretta sat with us on one of our Tuesday evening meetings and kind of help them along with some questions too.
Everyone, when they get their first certificate or their first client, but it's a volunteer work, they're always like, don't tell Alex and Meredith that it was volunteer. What I have always said in response to that is volunteer with intentionality is different than offering your services for free because you don't understand the value that either party is providing and needing to be a part of. What I love that you just painted, and I'm really glad you went into those details. Yes, you were not being paid, and also you were receiving an advisor's time. In many senses, Loretta was volunteering time to train you. And so in some ways, it's an exchange versus volunteer labor to get something done for Loretta. It'd be a very different situation if Loretta handed you the project, never talked to you again, and then expected you to do all of the work. And so I do want to point out those nuances for everyone listening because there's a lot of different ways that volunteer work can be done. And you're painting a very clear picture of how it can actually work as an exchange of goods that might not just be as familiar to us as money is in this economy, in our society.
I found Loretta when she posted that she wanted somebody to review her website. And I looked at it and I'm like, wow, geez, I'd love to rent some space as one of your contractors or something. That's how all this got started. Cause I'm like, look at her go. And then it just took off from there. We started working together and I actually do a lot of editing. So I'm kind of picking up more in that space. I really wanted a mentor because I had been certified. I got certified in like 2.5 months, and I felt like I was thrown into the water to swim. And I'm like, I really wanted to see how a graduate had done it and how she interacted with the clients, how she had her first meeting, all that stuff that you can't really teach. She let me come along for the ride, and it eased a lot of my anxiety. So blessed to find her. I've learned so much, and she's very patient and kind, and I'm grateful.
This is such a positive story because often when we engage in volunteer labor, one of the cons is that we don't find people as committed. And it's very clear that the three of you were very committed to the journey. And so I just honor that space. Lots of people could have taken advantage of that. You guys actually came in with the intentionality of this is a relationship worth cultivating.
And they are all now on paying jobs. I think Rachel even has her own retainer client. And if I can't get enough work for my team, they can use my brand, my reputation. I stand behind them and I help them get jobs.
What is one of the best parts of collaborating together?
Rachel is really good on details, and so is Pat, asking the right questions. Pat will really dive deep, and I actually handed off a client to her that really needed her help and expertise, loved to read in Florida, and she gave me a whole another level of knowing what the funder might anticipated needs and going beyond just the questions that the funder asked to get to the meat of the story to be able to write better grants. In fact, Rachel and
This
I
is what,
just won a grant
yeah.
for Good Sports for one of our clients. She works with me on Washington Youth Soccer, and without her, I don't think I would have had the best application. I mean, we were up against 600 other clubs, and only 100 clubs got into this program. It's supposed to give us equipment for the
Wow.
next 5 years. Rachel and Pat and my other writers helped me become a better writer.
This is one of the flip sides of the fear. How can I lose control? How can I give up this project that I care so much about to someone I don't know, right? That's one of the biggest fears with hiring. And you just painted the most incredible flip side of that, which is why I will always hire, is because it does make us better humans. The people around us make us better at our own jobs and often do our job maybe even better than we did. And that, I think it is one of the most beautiful parts of hiring. So thank you so much. I'm so glad, one, that that's happening with you. And then two, that you got to share that. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
What's the best part of collaborating on a team for you guys?
When you go at a project with a team or together, you kind of go off one another and fill in the blanks. If there's somebody that's really strong at project management and hitting deadlines, or even reading the grant requirements and making sure it's the right alignment, maybe when you're on the call with the client, the other person is there with the list of questions. Somebody is always having an eye on the project, and it really helps for accountability and making sure that everything is accurate and complete. That's my favorite part.
It helps so much with our confidence of like someone else is in here with me.
Absolutely. And thank goodness for Loretta, her expertise and knowledge and experience. Like that is huge. I worked with one nonprofit before meeting Loretta. That was my career, 10 years at the same nonprofit. I think branching out to all these different various industries, and Loretta has, like she said, youth sports or literacy programs, science, technology programs. So all over the place. And I would have never gained that experience without Loretta.
Pat, let's hear from you.
For me, confidence was huge. It's not a straight line. You can teach all day long how the process is, but real world is different. Having someone to hold my hand as I go through it and see how they go through the process and what they do first, and even their organizational uses of different tools was helpful, definitely helpful to see inside somebody's business. That was great. And I have just been subcontracting. I didn't expect to be watching my grandchild 3 days a week, but I couldn't turn it down, not doing it full time. I haven't had time to go out and develop my business, although I'm going to work on that more. But now when I do go out, not only do I have the collective behind me, which I used as, hey, I've got everybody with experience type thing, but I have Loretta who could come right into the meetings with me and help me sell it. I can't replace that experience, and I can go out with more confidence. And it really showed me how to deal with the clients, some of the business tips and tricks, how to keep things moving and check in with clients. And we checked in with each other. It's really been valuable to me.
It's such a beautiful model of all ships rise. Women get a bad rap sometimes for either gatekeeping way too much, especially as we've broken really significant barriers in the workplace. Then each generation we break more. And so sometimes I think we have gotten a bad rap of not always bringing the next generation of women with us. And this is just a beautiful example of how when we do open up and collaborate, how it can be so much bigger than we've ever imagined. If Pat and Rachel, you decide to you expand your own businesses, like they will only be bolstered by what Loretta has shared
Oh,
versus
yeah.
competitive. And that's really beautiful and doesn't always happen. So I just, yeah, thank you all for bringing that energy and intention into that collaboration.
And I think there's so much involved in writing a grant. It's really great to have a team, especially just to check in on, to have a project manager. I mean, all that stuff is so great and it keeps us all rolling and heading in the right direction. We all have our different specialty areas. So it is a collaborative effort that's very beneficial as a whole, the synergy.
And I totally encourage them to grow. I'm never going to stop them from getting clients. And if they get so busy they can't work with me, that's fine. I've got 500 people in the collective that I'm sure could jump on board. I never worry
Yeah.
too much about taking on too much work unless I have to supervise more than like 5 projects. Then I'm like, okay, I'm done for now. I'll worry about growth another time. I have this
Yeah.
tool that I call the training game newsletter. Anything and everything that I come up with that I'm like, hey, they might need to know this in the future. And I'll do looms
Nice.
where I'll do research and show them how my brain thinks about grants and where I'm looking exactly on instrumental, send it out whether it's their client or not. Because the more niches you know, the more you know how to search in all different kinds of ways, then you'll have more benefits for your client. And then I always check in with them and see, are they available? If I got a new client coming in, whether I land them or not, like yesterday, I had a LinkedIn client jump into my message box. I send it out to some of my team. Are you available? This is when the grant is due. This is going to be kind of what the structure is going to be. Do you have availability? And we might land another client for some Illinois energy efficiency work with some of my other team members.
Your niches like are all over. I don't even know if we get to call them niches, Loretta. I think you have so many different expertise levels.
That's why my name is Planet Grants. Like on a global level, I just want to help communities and organizations make the planet a better place. And I don't really want a niche. There are
Yeah.
benefits to niching, so I will kind of go into that. So benefits to niching are you know your grant cycles, you probably know the program managers, you've established those relationships, and you can anticipate a grant coming out within 6 months to a year, and that's great. Not niching, it helps me because then I can work with all my passion causes, whether it's youth literacy and education, sports. I grew up playing soccer. I was a soccer referee. Now I work for a soccer organization. We're going to help kids in Yakima who are low income get equipment and be able to play soccer, which is great for youth development. I do workforce development,
Thousands.
previously incarcerated individuals, and kind of in the sustainability space, I work with battery technology that actually established the first recycling loop in North America with Nanotech Energy, BASF, and I think it's ABTC out of, I want to say, Massachusetts. Don't quote me on that.
And this is why grant writers are the most fun person at dinner party, right? Because we are so dangerously knowledgeable about all of these things. It's so fun. Grateful that Rachel and Pat get to also jump into these different industries with you. Do we have any challenges that we could maybe air a little bit of oxygen in to let people know that not all the things are butterflies and rainbows all the time?
A business owner, I hate dealing with my business. I don't like reconciling invoices. I don't like making the contracts and the MOUs and all that stuff. But until I can train somebody to know what's in my brain per client, it's really difficult to tell somebody how to be me.
Yeah.
I'm working with my virtual assistant and a IT professional developer to do the back end. I have so many clients now and stuff. I can't keep track of everybody, whether they're for profit, nonprofit, who's working on them, who doesn't have work, who's in the pipeline still of development, and we haven't signed the contract. I'm not an organized person usually. This business has made me an organized person through Asana and Google Drive and getting my systems together. So that's my challenge.
I'm right now interviewing a bunch of CRMs for ourselves. I am this close to being like, okay, which CRM could I use both for us and for helping agency owners in the collective? Because really, we are getting to a point, especially with all the cold outreach, where a CRM would be so helpful. I hear you. That might be a little light bulb that we need to follow into the fall quarter. Rachel, Pat, tell us about a challenge that you've encountered working in a team, whether it's Loretta's team or a different team, and how you guys worked through that challenge.
Open communication is super important, and it's very important to understand clearly what is expected of you beyond the memorandum of understanding. Very specific directions, whatever you want us to do, because we're taking your baby there. So make it clear so we can keep you happy. Having a wrap up or follow up meetings is beneficial to
Nice.
go over, do a debriefing and see what went well and where we could have improved or whatever while it's still fresh in our minds.
So many best practices of managing a team, right? Like open communication, making sure that your team has the clear scope of work, but then also they know where and when to ask questions. That's huge because you are going to have questions no matter how clear we get the scope of work. And so understanding where and when and how to ask questions is so important. And then, yeah, I agree. The postmortems are sometimes more important than the whole project itself because we learn so much when we do the debrief. Thank you so much, Pat. Rachel, have you had a challenge that we can chat through?
I don't want to call it so much of a challenge, but it's a process that I'm trying to figure out for myself if I were to ever start a business or hire subcontractors. For Loretta's case, for my other client, for my husband's business, getting paid from your client often takes time, right? So you send the invoice, whether it's a half a deposit in the beginning or whatnot. So you have to wait for your client to pay you to then be able to pay your subcontractors. I don't have an LLC. I have no business started just yet. I have one retainer client. I work with Loretta. I just have a few like word of mouth referrals. But I feel like if I start to put more energy into growing, I would probably need another writer to help. And that whole process of paying them, that's my fear, like that I don't know how to really set that up just yet.
Such a good point. We're doing a new hiring cohort, which will come into the training. Laura's going the direction of an agency. So it will be different when we talk about employees and what it looks like to run a robust 8-person operation versus you plus like one person who's going to maybe come in on a project basis. And one of the things that we can do is in your contract with your subcontractor is you get paid within 15 days of receiving the payment from the client. And that's an okay thing to do and very normal in the industry for hiring subcontractors. One of the big myths, I think, around hiring or getting help, especially as solo entrepreneurs who are just starting out, is that we have to have all of the things dialed. And the reality is, we don't. I mean, and how you experienced even with Loretta, like Loretta's entree into this was like, okay, I know that I can mentor and coach and really help people get certified. Is that enough of a value to them for them to help me with this client project? It was. That was her foray in. There's a million different entry points. One of them is like, I'm not going to pay you until the client pays me because we're both new in this. Let's just agree to that up front. I'm going to do everything in my power to get paid. I vetted the client, but if I don't get paid, I can't pay you. As long as the both of you know that, then it's in the agreement and that's what we can go and work with.
Yeah, it's in my
Mhm.
contracts with them. They know they get paid when my client gets
Yeah.
paid. However, because I have a large retainer client, I am able to prepay some people for their work ahead of time
Exactly.
while I'm waiting that
Yep.
2 weeks or 30 days. Or in
Yeah.
the example of McAllister and Quinn, this new agency that my team onboarded on as a team, we might wait 3 months to get paid for a project. I'm actually
Yeah.
trying to establish a line of credit outside my business to be able to pay them while we're waiting on clients to pay me. Unfortunately, my business isn't running enough because Chase requires you to have a 10K credit line. That's the minimum for them. And you have to have quite a lot of income coming in. And I've only been this higher income, making 10,000 a month for like the past couple months to even show that I could handle that type of credit line. If you're not like me and you don't have an LLC and you just need some extra help, you have them sign an
Yeah.
MOU that says, I'm going to get a work deposit from the client. You're going to get this much from that deposit. In 30 days, you're going to get this much. And you can do Zelle, PayPal, Facebook. I do Gusto. Thank you, Unicorns, for giving me that referral because I love Gusto and they have a cheaper plan just for contracting. You don't need to do payroll or employees. That's a whole other set of legalities I'm not ready for, and I don't have enough stable income to bring on actual employees. But when it comes to contractors, it's actually pretty easy to pay people as long as they're digitally connected. Yeah, and they even handle my independent contractors in Nigeria because I have a Nigerian on staff who lives in Nigeria. So they have international payment, which is actually really difficult in a lot of African countries.
Let's go into your own grant writing goals. Pat, let's start with you. You have a granddaughter that you get to watch. Talk to us a little about your journey on this and how subcontracting has played in.
I guess it goes back a couple of years when my daughter had a baby and I ended up moving to help her watch her baby. I picked up and I moved, and I was in real estate for over 20 years and kind of burnt out from being so busy 24/7 during COVID. I did that until the baby was almost 2. And I'm like, okay, that's enough. Time to bring on a real nanny. So they hired someone, and I needed to use my brain more. I had volunteered for a pickleball, a neurodiversibility pickleball organization that had veterans and kids with autism. They put me in charge of their silent auction, and it was so much work, and we only raised like $5,000. And I'm like, I could put all this time and effort into something else and get way more money. I started researching ways, and I came across grant writing, and then I came across the collective. I signed up eventually. When it came time, I said, I'm going to do this full time now so I can go back and forth between my kids. 2 months after that, my son and his wife needed help with their newborn because the other grandmother's like, I'm out of here. So I'm like, well, I did it for one, I have to do it for the other. I came back to Maryland, and I've been watching this baby 3 days a week. I'll hang in there as long as I can, but it's only given me 2 days to write grants and evenings and weekends. And I'm like, I'm back to what I didn't want to do, work all the time. I felt like I was the working mom. We'll see how that goes. But right now, being with Loretta and Christy and some of the others as a subcontract has worked out so beautifully for me, because I can't hop on meetings with clients Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not while I have this commitment. And I don't have the time to go out and chase the business if I also want to earn money, which I have to pay for the collective, of course. So this has been the best way for me right now.
This is the beauty of building a life that you love, is that it can look so different at different stages, and how beautiful that this has provided this different pathway. Rachel, tell us a little bit about your grant writing goals and how subcontracting fits in.
I have 3 kids that I'm the primary caretaker for. My husband's business is very demanding. He travels a ton. And I have kids that each are 4 years apart, all different stages of life. So I have a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And it is constant. I'm the same way as Pat, where I need to pace myself. I want to go set the world on fire and write as many grants as possible, but realistically, being up at midnight and on weekends and all of that, it's a lot. So I was at a youth serving nonprofit for 10 years as like a program director towards the end. And then COVID hit. So the whole entire program shut down. So that's when I was home with my children, and they were doing like virtual learning and everything like that. So I really did take a break from my career for those few years. Also at my previous employer, they provided a grant writing course. So we did take a 1 week long training course, and we dove in. My team and I wrote 1 grant, we won, and we kind of got the bug like, oh, this is exciting. And I did really like it. I do like the project management of all of it and the writing. I knew after COVID that I wanted to keep working with nonprofits and had an interest in grants. That's when I found the collective, and I would watch your videos and truly cry. I'd be like, these are my people. Oh my goodness. Everything that you talk about, from like the valley of despair, all of it, that's me to a T. So I really felt connected to the entire program, and I'm so glad that I did. As my children are getting older, school just started back up. I did put my 2-year-old, I have him 1 block away with an in-house nanny 2 days a week. And those are my 2 days that I just cram in all my meetings and as much as I can get done. And right now it's been great. I do know of a few board members that have either found me on LinkedIn or just word of mouth that are interested. And I was hesitant to say yes or even proposal together, but that accountability group that I know, like the other writers, they are also looking for side things. With Loretta and with that group, I feel like I could help other people subcontract as well.
Just so beautiful, because it's relieving a pain of yours and also passing along the knowledge that Loretta has given you. You get to pass it on in a Rachel way. It feeds the river. I love it. Loretta, do you want to share a win that you are recently celebrating?
My retainer client, Nanotech Energy, their investment paid off. They just won a $2.1 million match grant from the California Energy Commission. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring on subcontractors is because it took me forever to land my first job. Like, I've got a degree in environmental policy, and I couldn't land a sustainability grant writing job or like with a client to save my life for those first 6 months. It took me 6 months to get a job with Fox Advancement, even though they brought me on for grant writings. I just wanted to make that bridge easier for newer people. Once you write that first grant, once you win your first grant, doors just open up. But until then, you're like struggling trying to get out of that pit because they ask you, what's your return on investment? What's your win rate? All these different questions that you can't answer yet until you actually write and win a grant.
It's amazing. And Nanotech, that's the company that Rachel came in on, right?
Yep, she helped me with her $500 million funding strategy.
It's incredible. That's an amazing win. Awesome. Okay, Rachel, Pat, do you have a win you're celebrating?
Few of the grants that for my retainer client, we have a team of us that goes and works on these grants. I just found out that 2 of them were awarded. So that was exciting. Also, they extended my retainer contract. Very excited about that.
Yes. All right. Pat.
I just finished up over 80 hours in 4.5 weeks with the subcontractor. So that was a lot of evenings and weekends.
Yeah, I would
But it was
say.
a great learning experience in a niche that I'm interested in, which is water infrastructure projects. That was a great learning experience. And we're waiting to hear at the end of the month anytime now, right, for our literacy client that Loretta brought me. Personally, I just feel that now I have a lot of this experience behind me with different kinds of clients and all. I feel I could go out or post anywhere that I have this experience now. And there's a lot of my accountability buddies, fellow unicorns who are looking. So if anybody's out there considering it, they would love to work with you. And it really gives us a boost. It gives us confidence. It gives us experience. It gives us things to post and get the word out a little bit. So it's really a great thing to have somebody mentor me.
This is really incredible. And I just am so grateful and inspired by the intentionality that all of you have put into this relationship, the commitment, the respect, the admiration, the kindness. It's really quite apparent why you guys are working so well together. And I don't want that to be swept under the rug because I don't think that that's how everyone enters relationships. So I'm really grateful for the intentionality that you've all put into that.
Yeah, I feel like I got pretty lucky. If I could have written a list of everything that I wanted, I found it. So
I love my
That's
team.
so sweet.
I love my team. There's about 12 of us
True.
now. It fluctuates every now and then. I actually just upped my reporting game. So I have 2 accountants. I have another grant writer who does reporting with a university in the state. We're actually
Great.
doing grant reporting right now with one of my clients, Concrete Rose, because they won a $100,000 Oregon violence prevention grant. And so my VA is learning reporting. I'm learning reporting. And that'll be our next set because I'd much rather help spend the money than try and make the money.
It filters down from the leadership. If you have a good leader, that benefits everyone, I think.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing bits and pieces of your stories. I'm so very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us,
you.
Alex.